Just to introduce myself, thank you, Sylvia, for the little intro. My name is Tabitha Beasley, and I'm the founder and owner of the Marketing Associates. We are a strategic marketing agency. I bring with me my degree and years of experience in marketing and advertising agencies, and my associates bring all of the marketing channels, such as Sylvia delivering excellent SEO insights to all my clients. So today I'm going to do something a bit different. I hopefully can share my screen straight away. And hopefully can everyone see that? Sylvia, if you just give me a thumbs up. Brilliant. Okay, yes. So I am going to talk to you today about how to market your business, your money or your life business. So to go straight into it, what does your money or your life business look like? So we are talking about critical industries here. And just to confirm, a critical industry is anyone working within healthcare, finance, energy, defense, transport, utilities, public services. Now, when we talk about branding in these industries, we're not talking about impulse purchases. We are talking about considered purchases. So just to give an example, think of it as dating versus marriage. You need to really think about these things. And the elements you need to think about are trust, risk, and accountability. So you need to be able to trust the brand you're purchasing from. What are they saying? How do they say it? Where do they say it? Risk. What's the risk associated with buying from a brand in the critical industry? What impact is that going to have potentially on you, your life, your family? And finally, accountability. We all like a bit of accountability, but is that brand still going to be there if anything goes wrong? You need to ensure, hopefully everyone today is working within a critical industry, so this makes sense, but you need to ensure that whatever you're doing sits within that criteria. So what do you need? You need a strong brand. A strong brand, if I asked you all to think of some strong brand examples now, you would all come up with different examples of brands. That hasn't happened by accident. That hasn't happened overnight. This isn't just a pretty logo or a clever word pun or two. A strong brand is made up of so much more. So they are made up of authority, trust coming in again, clarity, and emotional connection. Authority, showcase your knowledge, your experience, and your heritage. Demonstrate that you really do have authority in your field, and do that through your brand. And obviously that does need some thought and, planning as to what that looks like. Trust. How does a brand appear trustworthy? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you may think. Gather client testimonials, build case studies. If you've got qualifications, if you've got accreditations, make sure that you talk about those things. So for example, if you're a B Corp registered, there's no point doing all that work, but not having that on your email footer, on your website, talking about it, maybe helping others to become B Corp registered. In a critical industry, it's worth using real people examples and imagery as well over and above stock images. Please don't use AI to write your articles. If you are in a critical industry, you need to be as open, as authentic, as trustworthy as possible. Thirdly, clarity. When I did my marketing degree, we talked about the keep it simple, stupid. So be simple in your messaging, in your tone. Be clear, concise, consistent. Demonstrate anything if you need to, for example, like compliance, demonstrate those in a clear, consistent manner. And finally, emotional connection. People buy people is one of my favorite phrases that I use a lot. This is about emotional connection. We have all worked with people we don't like. We have all had that situation where we just don't warm to someone for whatever reason. If you are a critical industry brand, you need to be showing your understanding. You need to have empathy. But with regards to marketing terms, this can be displayed in things like clear, concise, potentially professional language. Don't use jargon. Have a meaningful message. Show your empathy whilst doing the best job you can.
All right.
So, Silvia, would you mind meeting everyone, please? Thanks. So every brand needs, before we get into the nitty gritty of the brands and what you need to do when you finish this webinar this afternoon, every brand needs to have a very clear mission. The why. Why are you doing this? Why are you getting out of bed? Why does the brand exist? Vision, the where. Where do you want to go? What is your vision? What's the business's vision for the future? And finally, the value. What values do you adhere to? Do you believe in? And do you demonstrate? So I've got some examples for you. I'm going to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to keep it lighthearted, and I hope that none of you have worked for the brands that are going to precede this slide. So the good example, does anyone remember the nationwide rebrand from 2023? I actually can't see you, so I don't know why I'm asking, but if you put your hand up, great. So while other brands like Lloyd's, NatWest, HSBC, Barclays, they are closing their high street branches, they are closing down. Nationwide decided to plan a strategy in completely in opposite direction. So they decided in 2023 to launch a new brand, a rebrand, of the building society. And they launched a strategic brand promise, which was, and I quote, a good bank with a human touch that is there for its customers. Now, that's not hard, is it? Like, we're talking about a bank here. They do mortgages, they have your savings, your ISA, your pension, your livelihood. They did it so successfully in such a simple way. I don't know if any of you remember the TV ad, but it's brilliant. It's one of my favorites, actually. So it was an older gentleman, very smart, wearing a suit and tie in a huge palatial office with his assistant holding his drink. And he's in any bank, and they do a shot of up this huge glass building like the Shard, and it's NANY Bank. And he's there saying, we're going to have to downsize. We're going to have to make cuts. I can just about do with this office, but we're going to have to get rid of downstairs. And of course, by downstairs, he means the bank. And then he looks out the window across the road to Nationwide, and he makes a comment about, is that my ex-wife going in? So it was very cleverly done. It wasn't just a great rebrand. It wasn't just a very clever. Their decision to stay on the high street increased their turnover last year alone by 34%. And when I say 34%, that looks like $1.31 billion. So not a bad rebrand at all. Moving on to the bad. I don't know if any of you remember the Royal Mail rebrand attempt quite a long time ago, 2001. I was at university and I actually had to study it. So in 2001, Royal Mail decided to rebrand to Consignia. This lasted less than 12 months. This is how unsuccessful it was. Now, Royal Mail are a huge brand. This would have cost them hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not more. Yet they didn't do their proper research. They didn't do any target market insight work, and therefore they didn't realize the impact rebranding would have had. Absolute disaster. Now, I've got an ugly example. You may not agree with me. So it's a real talking point. And as we say, there's no such thing as bad PR. The ugly Jaguar. Very, very, very mixed results, but it did generate significant buzz. So the reason it was seen as a failure was because I don't know if you remember the advert, but the advert, obviously, Jaguar has always been a sort of potentially an older person's car, an aspirational car. It has always been a very sophisticated professional brand. They've always had their iconic Jaguar icon with the lettering. The TV ad that they launched was featured brightly coloured dressed people and not a single car. So this led to a lot of criticism, and the word woke was bandied around. But it really caused a huge amount of PR. Although they totally and utterly alienated their traditional older customer base, their sales did dip and they had a huge production issue, but that was down to going completely electric. But it was a bold new direction. It was intended to signal this huge shift to all electric. This was a huge company decision, super luxury, putting a line in the sand between the old and the new. And they've done that. So while the online and the press had a field day, the new model itself has actually gone down very, very well. And, you know, despite the controversy, the sales have now started to grow. So what is the problem you are trying to solve, though? So imagine we are currently looking at a rebrand for your business, the brand that you manage. What is the problem you're trying to solve? In order to move forward, you really have to understand the core problems that you may be dealing with. So number one, this is my firefighting. Number two, this is my, if you recognize that, that's a scene from Back to the Future. This is what they thought the future would look like. So number one is firefighting. Are you trying to get away from problems? Number two is future proofing. Example of a firefighting rebrand that went wrong. Anyone remember when Hermes went to Every? Did anyone watch the Panorama program before Christmas about how terrible Every are? They got rid of Hermes overnight and Every popped up. They did it almost like Hermes has gone and died and we've got this, and there's a new company, there's a new kid in town, but it's the same people. They didn't change their systems and their processes and the fact that they pay terribly and they treat people terribly. So it's not been, that's firefighting rebrand again has not been successful. Future proofing. Times are changing fast, like really fast. In all honesty, when I deal with my clients rebranding, I do a little bit of firefighting and future proofing. So you need to think about what in your business is causing you to consider a rebrand. But before you can do this, you need to think about who your target market is. This is just an example of a one demographic. You need to think about the gender, the age, the geographic location, the socio-demographics, job titles, sectors, etc. Without knowing and understanding your target market, you are never going to be able to communicate with them successfully. Therefore, you're never going to be able to sell to them. If you work in law, for example, you can't talk to someone in the same way if you are selling them support for a divorce, purchasing a property, having an employment dispute, or writing a will. They are totally and utterly different things. And that's not even taking into account corporate products. If you think back to Nationwide, the reason it was so successful is because they are speaking to people, their customers, who they know, and they know what they want and what they need. And to be honest, let's face it, this isn't just the older generation wanting to keep a high street bank. This is everyone, and we've all been there, where we have a problem where we just need to go into a bank. We need to go into a branch. We need a real person to resolve our problem there and then, without chatbots, without job numbers, etc. So, how do you communicate to your audience? Who who are you trying to communicate to? That's your target market. When is the best time to communicate to them? If you are trying to cut through to busy professionals, daytime may not be the best. If you are talking to doctors, they're probably going to be in clinic. Where do you communicate to them? This is my favorite. If you think of all the different channels and platforms we have at our disposal now, you could go everywhere. Less is more. If you are selling care services, there is no point being on TikTok, because people looking to go into care homes or people looking to find solutions potentially for their relatives are not going to be looking at TikTok at this point in time. What are the key points you want to communicate? You can't say it all. It's just going to be too much noise. What are your key objectives? What are your key messaging points? And finally, how will you communicate this message? Think of the channels, think of what is suitable. And that is all I have for you today. So it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hope that has given you a really good overview of what we're talking about when we talk about a brand, because it's a huge subject. And secondly, all of the pieces you need to consider. Now, I haven't gone into marketing strategies. I haven't gone into marketing plans. Obviously, if anyone wants support with that or to discuss something like that, I'm happy to talk separately. But I think, Silvia, you'll agree, it's a huge subject. So I really do hope that's given you a taste and hopefully help you and stimulate some thought that you can go back to your team with.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. That was really, really helpful. And I'm pretty sure everybody found lots of key takes and insights. If you have questions, I would recommend maybe jotting them down, adding them to the chat if you want, because we will be dedicating a little bit of time, as we always do, at the end for Q&As. And they can be specifically on some of the things that Tabitha mentioned, or it can be on some of the things that I'm about to say. So if you've got something on your mind and you'd like to say it, put it down in the list. And we will go through everything as we finish. Now I will start sharing my screen, and you should be able to see the slides. Let me move this thing around. Thank you so much, Silvia. So cool. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you know me by now. I've been doing this job specifically in the search engine optimization industry for quite a long time. And the blessing in this is that it helped me see how it's changed. So having lots of historic points helps me now understand what is happening more deeply, because there's been lots of changes, but the direction stays the same. And it's really interesting to see how we take changes forward from the constant change in the algorithm. And the agency, PinkSEO, is a pure play SEO agency. I'm the director. We don't do anything else than optimizing websites. I believe in specializing, being as specialist as one can be, which is why I'm really, really glad Tabitha joined us today, because she's giving the broader view, and we are really always very, very laser focused in the one thing that we do very well. So one of the reasons why I really wanted to see you all today, and I wanted to have this session specifically on these your money or your life kind of industries, is because Google, in its immense wisdom, thought it nice to have another algorithm update, a core algorithm update in December around the festivities. Sometimes they do these things when nobody supposedly is going to notice. We did. And it's mainly impacting precisely these industries. So that's why I wanted to be sharing some of these key takeaways. What they do, and they always do, is not completely change the way they do things, but to go even more critically in depth into some of these elements. So what they have done this time is to become even a little bit stricter on how they evaluate content and websites in these industries. So we haven't seen any damage as for our clients who looked after. If anything, we have seen some improvements, but we know, we hear the buzz around it's been quite intense in general, the results. So what they have been doing is demoting some of the things that they don't like. And we will go through some of these things in the session. There's nothing really new. What's crucial is that there's never nothing really new in SEO, despite all the buzz, but some of the things that we should keep in mind now are really, really important. Now, this your money or your life is a fun expression. They literally lifted it from comics and cartoons because it's what makes websites have an impact on people's health or safety or economics. So it's basically these, usually we bind it to three: medical, legal, financial, but we also know that it impacts, for example, elections or safety. When it was COVID time, it was full on and it should have been even more, which is why they're learning from their lessons. So they are becoming always more and more critical because one thing is evaluating a restaurant website, one thing is evaluating a surgeon website. So the impact on a prospective user's life is critically different. And the all of the elements that Tabitha mentioned before, and you certainly recognize some of these. You could recognize trust, you recognize expertise. These are not just in how humans interpret the content and the materials that you're presenting, but also in how machines interpret the content. Because the nice thing that we're doing with this session, you're actually putting humans and machines together. So you're doing these strategies, you're doing these sort of decisions. How will the machines evaluate these decisions that you took? Will they rank it? Will they not? And if, then why? So when we talk about experience, is making sure that all of you have in your past history of treating your patients, looking after your clients, is actually presented into the website. So it needs to come out of your knowledge and it needs to go into the website. And expertise regards all of your past history and your credentials, your accreditations, which brings you back into the trust that somebody can place into the website. So if they had to dig to find that level of information, it's something that's not going to rank very well because it needs to be clear, it needs to be quite evident. We'll talk about AI in a little moment, but definitely what doesn't work is vanilla flavored kind of AI content that you're just churning out. It's generic advice that you can find anywhere else. It doesn't move the needle. We will see in a little moment how dangerous it can be, particularly with the new algorithm updates. And being featured, again, SEO never really changed. So being featured elsewhere, being mentioned, is a token of trust, is a token of recommendation that you are being endorsed with, and Google and the AI sources will be able to trace it through and find you back and give you even more relevance. So the famous EEAT is something that absolutely is guiding now the principles even more. Now, I have some real case examples of how we can make sure that these things would appear. So experience, expertise, if you see these clients, these are clients who we're showing things that we know that we can, and we are they're happy to be featured. They are not shy in showing how much, and we have our friend here, they're not shy in showing their experience, their past knowledge, all of that, because it's something that you have accumulated and it needs to be on your site front and center. So don't make sure you don't have pages with an admin as the author of content. It needs to be someone who's named and it's got a history. And why should I trust this person for saying things? Here is why. This is where they have gathered the knowledge, and this is where they have been accredited. All of the about pages need to be really, really crucial. They're always one of the most checked pages on websites, about pages, because people are curious. So they want to see the brand and they want to see who is behind the brand. And now, even more than ever, in these critical, high trust industries, they want to know that they can really trust you. So all of your affiliations, all of your belongings, bodies, memberships, you need to make sure that those are live in the site. And when we were talking about using AI, so not churning out vanilla flavored content, definitely there are places in which it can help us, because the blank page terror is something that can exist, and AI can really help us with that, because it can just structure an outline. It can help us brainstorm. It can give us something to start with. But absolutely, what we need to do then is to take our unique angle into knowing I treat this patient this way because of my experience, and this is how I've been doing, or I need to be introducing a specific sort of change into procedures because this is what the studies have been proving. So your unique angle is something that can't be found anywhere else. So it's not something that you can kind of reheat it in many other websites. It's something that only lives in your head, in your knowledge, and that is something that will, in the end, end up ranking better. And when we talk about topical contents, definitely we always need to validate this content. So we know that SEO is a data-driven science. So even if we have AI advice on what could be best to be focused on, we always need to see the real numbers and see, okay, this is important, but is it important 7 or 70? What is the scale and how would it actually impact? Now, again, another couple of real cases, and in this case, we've taken us as an example of when you appear on AI, so not using AI as a support for producing content, but using AI as a support for getting new patients, getting new clients, so being featured. Why do some surface, why do some rank and some others don't? We tried asking the 3 major Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Gemini, asking, can you find me a company? And we do it for our clients. We do all this kind of testing and we see if results are appearing, because now search is not, it's a search ecosystem. It's not search engines anymore. It's search engines plus AI search tool. And it will only be like this more and more and more as we go on in the future, because people find contextualized answers precisely tailored for them. So it's easier to find something that is made for you because of all the answers and the questions that you asked before, rather than something that is kind of generalist. So when we see why somebody ranks, then we try to reverse engineer and see what brings there. And the 3 core tenets that you see here are the ones that have always been driving SEO. So you will see it in the general advice in a little moment. If you remember, no, I'm not raising my hand. If you remember, there is an SEO triangle, 3 sides of the SEO triangle that we've been recommending. It's coding, content, and backlinks, the things that drive SEO forward. The same thing happens with AI. That's really, really reassuring to see. So in this case, for example, when we saw ourselves featured, then we tried to find out the reason why. and it was being featured along with the content. It was being featured in one old directory. So when we talk about backlinks and being featured as part of a digital PR sort of activity, being mentioned in directories used to be very old school SEO, but it still works, particularly if they're good directories, obviously. This one here, it was such an old listing that it still featured the old logo that we used to have, and we've changed it in 2024. So this just proves that backlinks, as we were saying before, being mentioned, the authoritativeness of being linked still matters quite a lot for AI searches as well. Another case that says why they have linked, they say they have worked with clinics, they emphasize and they claim strong results. So case studies. When we were mentioning featuring your experience, your expertise, case studies are the best place that allows you to do that. And it will actually give material for AI tools to actually have a proof of your experience and expertise. And finally, content. So when we are talking about they market themselves specifically as, this does show that together with having a flawless coding behind the website, which integrates schema is something that has always been existing. It's been existing for a very long time. It was 2011, I think they met Google, Bing, Yahoo, the biggest search engines at the time, and they decided this internet is growing so much. We need to have a criteria, or a set of criteria to decide what these sites contain. Let's decide a vocabulary, a shared vocabulary with content that will make us immediately understand what the site is about. Schema was born, nobody really cared much about it until now ChatGPT and the AI tools have disclaimed that they use schema. Now everybody's running back to start using schema. It has always existed, there's plenty of schema available. It falls within the coding elements of this triangle. But if you have that in place and together with strong content that qualifies and the right amount of mentions as backlinks, basically really, really solid from an SEO perspective. So if we want to recap what makes a site rank, and this is search engines, AI alike, we have in our code the fundamentals. They don't really change. Headings, meta descriptions, titles, keyword reference, page speed so that these sites can load quickly for user experience and for search engines alike. And now we also know that we need to have our schema embedded in there. Content, we've discussed the EAT, expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness. We need to focus, if anything, even more into pages and lead generation, because with AI overviews, we know that informative only content may not give us the clicks, because people will find the content summarized right on top of Google in an AI overview, which is really nice for brand authority, for brand awareness, but it doesn't give us the clicks. So if we want to push more traffic, more conversions, then we need to push into lead generation pages and clustering the content around little hubs of topical authority, internal links, connecting all of these pages together. That's also good. That's always been there. That's not changed. And it's good to see that it's still working better than ever. Backlinks, you know, absolutely. When you buy links, you are violating Google guidelines. So there is a specific set of Google guidelines that say you shouldn't buy links. So if somebody's selling you links and you're buying some, you are potentially getting in trouble, because Google can find these are toxic links, so they all belong to the same IP network. So we go for earned links, which can be digital PR, you can be outreach, you're reaching out to journalists, so it can be very selected directories. And as for our search engines, what is changed, if anything? They still are made of the same three main elements. We index this massive library of websites, which contains every page of every website in the world. Our crawler bots constantly keep crawling and scanning the web, and the algorithm that decides who goes first out of all this massive multitude of websites. What's changed is that new websites have been born. Every second, 3 new websites have been born. So the algorithm's life is really difficult, and the crawlers are doing lots of overtime job. So the crawl budget kind of tends to shrink. We need to make the most, make sure that you don't have any redundant content, that you don't have to crawl anymore, anything that you don't need anymore, COVID pages, things that are outdated, events they ran in 2022, all of these kind of things just wastes your crawl budget. Make sure that you're like pruning the tree, you're only keeping the really important things that you want to crawl on the site, and you're not wasting this amount of seconds, because if they go through it and they're finished and there's still plenty of content to crawl, it remains uncrawled, and you may have missed some very good opportunities in favor of something that doesn't really change. And the algorithm, yes, it keeps on changing, they keep on tweaking. There is this yet new 25 helpful, unhelpful content update, but we know that if we are really prioritizing expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness, you are definitely bringing forward something that doesn't exist. So it does move the needle. As for what to do, what not to do, you know it. So we focus on the content that is uniquely yours. You review it frequently, because particularly in your niche, your money or your life, medical, legal, financial, and all of that, I would say twice a year, let's say once a year at least, content needs to be reviewed, needs to be reread, needs to be retweaked, and you need to make sure, even if some procedures don't change, you recheck it, and if there's anything, you add it, you tweak it, you check the guidelines. Content in these niches needs to be very frequently reviewed, accurate. Obviously, we cannot allow any mistakes in these industries. We need to have our technical basis flawless, and quality over volume, because lots of noise only brings you damage. It doesn't help you. What you shouldn't do is getting super worried whenever there is an algorithm update, because as you see, they are only going more and more in the trajectory of rewarding who does good, and possibly, hopefully, penalizing who does bad. Obsessing over word count, how long should my articles be, is again old school SEO. It needs to be qualitative. It needs to be as thorough as can be, as informative as can be, but as uniquely yours as can be. So fluff isn't really necessary. We don't need to pad it, but it needs to be really strong and meaningful, and things that ideally only you know and only you can explain in that specific way. What not to do is over reliance on these roadmaps, because they can help us, but we need to have data to validate it. So there is plenty of things all the time, every time, that you could be doing, but you need to actually decide what moves the needle. So next steps, you know many of these. We have webinars, they're recurring, and you may probably get an invite whenever there is another one. We have newsletters, and I saw some of you agreed to be added. So if you did, you will hear from us later. If you have questions and you don't want to say them loud, you can send us an email. Tabitha as well is really happy if you're watching these as a recording. I know there's a lot of doctors, clients that couldn't join during the day, so they said I will be watching the recording. If you see the recording and you have questions, we would be happy if you have questions, because it shows that you care. Then feel free to send us, and we promise we will reply every question that you have. And there is an audit if you want. We always like to give a personalized advice, and it's completely free. And we can now open the floor. I still have my hands up for some reason. We can now open the floor to questions, feedback. I don't know if there was anything that we said that maybe stuck with you that you would like to pick our brains. Take the opportunity we're here. Use us.
I have a question.
Hi.
Hi
Hello.
there. Hello. My name is Polly. I'm from a company called Wired Differently. We support neurodivergent people through coaching, therapy, careers, that kind of thing. I have a question with regards to website and SEO. What's better to have? Is it a website with multiple pages or a continually scrolling website where people click a button and it will take you further down the page? From an SEO perspective, what's better?
Thank you so much, Polly. It's quite a very good question. It's a frequent question. It's not just yours. Many people. I see Joanna is nodding because I heard that. So the one-pager website can be quite helpful, quite immediate for you to build. But from an SEO standpoint, if you remember how search engines are made, so the index, every page is stored as if it was the biggest library of the world. Every page is kind of an entity in itself. And ideally, every page should match with some sort of search intent, search intention. So there could be a page that is about you, which matches the intention of getting to find a specific person doing that. There will be a page about services, some of the services, some of the consulting that you can do. And each of them uniquely, one by one, will match a different search intent because somebody needs one type of consultancy, somebody needs another one. So from an SEO point of view, a multi-page site wins. You're giving yourself better opportunities because you have the opportunity of targeting very specifically different keywords in your titles, in your headings, in the content.
Sure. Okay, and then I guess that follows on to just one more quick question. What's your take on having an About Us page? Is it crucial or is it not? Because some people go, oh, well, if they come to our site, they kind of know what, who we are. But we've got a bit of an umming and ahhing in our company where do we need an About Us page? Is it important or is it not really?
Well, would you like to check an About page if you were your client? Would you be curious to know a little bit the people behind the business, why they set the business?
Yeah, I personally would. Like that's me, but it's persuading others. My colleagues on this call as well, so he'll know.
I'm happy to interject there, Polly.
Please.
So from a branding, holistic overall point of view, absolutely 100% you need an About Us page.
Okay.
Firstly, it's an opportunity to explain who you are, your story. I spoke about the vision, mission, vision, values in that order. So that's how you would communicate that kind of thing. It's a good place to introduce yourself on a more personal level. We spoke about that, trust, authority. And thirdly, for SEO purposes, it's an excellent place to discuss, talk about your brand, introduce your brand in other terms that can be useful for search.
Credentials as well. And one thing you mentioned, Polly, you said if they find us, they know us. Well, it depends how they find you. If they find you through a branded keyword, as in they search for Wired differently, they find the site, they start navigating the site. That is one sort of easy win, but it's not necessarily something that generates new business because if they find you through a branded keyword, it means they already know the brand. And one way or another, if they know you, they will find you. There is no way you can hide nowadays online. What generates new business is all of the discovery segment. So all of the part of the audience that doesn't know Wired differently yet, but they have those pain points that you can help on neurodivergent. diversity, and all of the type of consulting that you can do. So people who don't know you yet, but they have the needs that you can fix, they shouldn't find you only via branded keyword. They should find you for consultancy for this and that. They see a list and they say, okay, let me see them. Ah, okay, who are they? Let me check. Okay, I like them. So that's the sort of discovery newbies generation that a site should be.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much. That strengthens our argument. So thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. I put it in the chat, but I'm not sure you guys can see it. It's quite specific. You said accreditations need to go into your website. Does that mean obviously in the copy, but are you talking about like badges, logos, that kind of thing as well? I mean, what kind of level do we need to go to for this accreditation thing?
Yeah, so personally, I would have your accreditations, if they're suitable, in your email footer, and in your website footer. I would also potentially, depending on the accreditation, especially if you're B Corp or something, you know, if as and when you get a new accreditation, I would do a news story on it, a post on it, as long as you can make it evergreen content. So, for example, I have logo-wise in my email footer that I am a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I'm accredited to the Good Business accreditation. I can't quite remember what it is. I'd love to be B Corp, not there yet. But you know, it's that kind of thing, because again, it showcases all of what you have achieved as the business.
Yeah, it's not cheap to become B Corp.
No, it's very difficult. I appreciate
It's a
that.
big investment. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. That's really helpful. Cheers.
From a website point of view, you consider who your site caters to. It caters to humans and it caters to machines. So you basically want to do a little bit of both. So having it visual, it's definitely helpful for your human audience, because they see the logo and they recognize it and they say, oh, okay, I know that. Particularly if they're knowledgeable in the industry, there are some specific visuals that they kind of expect to see. And if they don't see it, there's something missing. So it's just a reassurance and a point that should be there, and due diligence wise. In writing, it helps the human, but it also helps the machine, because the machine scans the content, they see that, and it's yet another.
Yeah, it's almost like the machine's quite naive, because you say, oh, you know, we're recommended on your website, and it says, oh, these people are recommended. It's almost just takes it as read that it's true because you've written it on your website. It's really interesting, isn't it, how it does that?
We need to be careful and take the results not at face value, do a little bit of that. I mean, they tend to scan. So if you mention something briefly and in one page and it's not endorsed elsewhere, they would probably not really trust. They want a few trust signals, not just one. But in general, it's a good reminder we need to be careful what we see, because sometimes the advice that these AI tools give, it's a little bit, superficial.
Okay, thanks. Cheers.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Joanna, did you have a question? I saw you kind of did this at one point.
I did. We kind of moved on. I'm a hypnotherapist, by the way, everybody. Well, last time we had a chat with Silvia, she said you should make an about page, which is what I did. I thought she'd like to know that. And hopefully I've put all of my accreditations on it. I was going to ask you, Tabitha, should you add on the about page the mission, vision, and value as well? Because it's already quite long, to be honest. I don't know if I might have covered it anyway, but should you have it specifically with those headings, or can you just refer to it in how you write?
Yeah, I'd refer to it for you and what you do. I'd refer to it in, you know, you could simply say, you know, we have set up in order to support people going through X, Y, and Z. Our, you know, and you can say things like our mission is, etc. You don't need to list brand values. It's brand values are how you live, how you communicate. You know, we all have personal values, you know, being a nice person always helps. So it's that kind of behavior in your communications. If you think of a supermarket example, you think of Waitrose and you think of Lidl, you can already in your mind think of their brand values. They're very, very different. So it's things like that to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Anything that stood out that you think, okay, I will bring this home because actually this helps, and I will try to, I don't know, or this was surprising. This is something that I didn't know.
We've answered everything. Our slides were so good. Well, I hope they were helpful to everyone. I forgot to say after my slides, if anyone would like to connect on LinkedIn, please do. Obviously, my name is Tabitha Beasley. I don't think there's many of us out there. It will be great to connect. I also produce a bi-monthly newsletter with useful articles with regards to marketing, brand, and how to do it, and the impact of things like, obviously, Sylvia's mentioned with SEO and AI, etc. So.
Thank you so much. I'm glad this was helpful. It was wonderful to see you all. If there is anything else that pops to your mind, maybe later on as you digest these things and you want to send us a message, you know where to find us. But it was just wonderful to see you all.
Thank you.